I didn't mean it. That's the truth. When I said fly this helicopter and I'll marry you, I meant it as a joke. A sharp one. A cruel one. I was desperate, cornered, and I needed someone to feel smaller than me for 5 seconds. So I chose the janitor. You ever say something you can't take back? That was the moment. Seattle wind was slicing across the rooftop. My phone was still in my hand. My deal with Skitech, 8 figures, was minutes from dying. The pilot had just called from the ER, broken wrist. No backup. No time. And then he stepped forward. Gray uniform. Mop still in his hand. I can fly it. The assistants laughed. I did too. A tight, cold smile, because men in suits had failed me all morning. Why would I trust a janitor? I looked him over. Tall, quiet, not nervous. That annoyed me. You're telling me you can fly a Bell 407? I asked. Yes, ma'am. No ego, no pleading. Just certainty. And something in my chest flickered. Not trust, not yet. Control. So I tilted my head and said it. Fly this helicopter and I'll marry you. I expected embarrassment. Maybe a step back, a shrug. Instead, he nodded. Set down the mop, walked to the cockpit like he belonged there. That's when my stomach dropped. Because he didn't hesitate. The engine roared alive, clean, smooth. Professional startup sequence. No fumbling. I climbed in because I had no choice. But when we lifted off, steady, controlled, precise, I stopped breathing. He flew like he'd done it in war, not traffic. Hands light on the controls, eyes scanning everything. Calm under pressure. And for the first time in years, I wasn't in control. I glanced at him midair. Where did you learn to fly? He didn't look at me. I used to do this for a living. That answer should have been simple. But it wasn't, because something about him felt restrained, like power held back on purpose. When we landed perfectly 12 minutes later, I turned to him and asked the only thing that made sense. Who are you? He finally looked at me and said quietly, someone who used to matter. And I swear, something inside me shifted. I couldn't focus during the Skytech meeting. That's the embarrassing part. 8 executives, 8 signatures, 8 figures on the table. And all I could think about was the janitor who flew like a ghost. You ever meet someone who unsettles you without trying? That was him. I delivered my pitch flawlessly. My voice steady, my smile sharp, my handshake firm. But inside, I was replaying the landing. The way the helicopter didn't even shudder when it touched the pad. The way his breathing never changed. Men with resumes twice as thick had sweat flying that route. He hadn't. When the contract was signed, applause filled the room. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt curious, and curiosity is dangerous for someone like me. By the time I returned to the office, he was gone. No dramatic exit, no waiting for praise. Just vanished back into gray fabric and invisible hallways. That bothered me more than it should have. So I did something I rarely do. I searched. Liam Walker, janitorial staff, 8 months employed, no prior experience listed. Blank. Too blank. I called a contact in military records. I told myself it was for liability reasons. That was a lie. 2 hours later, my phone rang. You sitting down? My friend asked. I don't sit, I replied. Pause. Captain Liam Walker, U.S. Army helicopter pilot. 2 tours. Medal of Valor. Honorably discharged 3 years ago. My grip tightened around the phone. Why'd he leave? Another pause. Wife died. Car accident. He had a newborn son. He walked away from everything. The room went quiet. A decorated pilot, mopping my floors. And I had mocked him. The shame hit slowly. Not loud, not dramatic. Just heavy. That night I saw him in the break room. Heating leftovers. His little boy asleep on a bench beside him. He adjusted the blanket without waking him. Whispered, I've got you, buddy. His voice was softer than anything I'd heard in boardrooms. And for the first time, I didn't see a janitor. I saw a man who had survived something I couldn't imagine. And suddenly my joke about marriage didn't feel clever anymore. It felt cruel. And worse, I wanted to understand him, which meant I was already losing control. I told myself I was just observing. That's how I justified it. COs observe. We analyze. We assess risk. But I wasn't studying a liability. I was watching him. Every night after 10:30 like clockwork, Liam would move through the executive wing, quiet, efficient, invisible by choice. And his son, Finn, would sit in the hallway with a small notebook, drawing helicopters in crayon. One night I walked past and the boy looked up at me. You're the lady from the roof, he said. Not the CEO, not Miss Kensington, just the lady. I nodded. That's me. He held up his drawing, a helicopter with uneven blades and 2 stick figures inside. That's my dad, he said proudly. He's the best pilot in the world. My throat tightened. I glanced at Liam. He didn't correct him. Didn't smile big, just looked away like praise made him uncomfortable. That intrigued me, because men usually lean toward recognition. He leaned away. Later that week, I called him into my office. He stepped in cautiously, still in his gray uniform. "Am I in trouble?" he asked. The fact that he assumed that bothered me. "No," I said. "I want to offer you something." I told him about SkiTech's simulator project, a consulting role, remote work, good pay, something worthy of his past. He listened quietly, arms relaxed, no visible reaction. When I finished, he shook his head. "No." Just like that. I blinked. "You're overqualified for mopping floors." He met my eyes then, really met them. "I'm not looking to be qualified for anything," he said. There it was, not laziness. Protection. "I just need my son safe and happy," he added. No bitterness, no resentment, just priority, and something inside me shifted again, because I've built an empire trying to prove I'm enough. He walked away from glory to protect one small boy. "Liam," I said softly as he reached the door. He paused. "You don't have to disappear to be a good father." His shoulders tensed. For a second I thought he might argue. Instead he said quietly, "Sometimes disappearing is the only way to survive." And then he walked out, and I stood there wondering why his pain felt louder than any boardroom battle I'd ever fought. I saw him break. That's when everything changed. It was almost midnight. The building was empty. I should have gone home, but home is quiet in a way that feels loud. So I wandered. That's when I heard crying. Not loud, not dramatic. Small. I followed the sound and found Finn sitting outside the simulation room. Knees to his chest, tears sliding down his cheeks. My chest tightened instantly. "Hey," I whispered, kneeling. "What's wrong?" He rubbed his eyes. "Dad had a bad dream." I looked through the glass. Liam was inside the flight simulator, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. I'd never seen him anything but controlled. It startled me. Finn leaned into me without hesitation. "I miss Mommy," he whispered. And that one sentence cracked something inside me, because I've lost people too, not the same way. But loss recognizes loss. The simulator door opened. Liam stepped out, eyes red, face composed again. He froze when he saw us. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "We didn't mean to." "You don't have to apologize," I interrupted. He picked up Finn, holding him tight. For a moment he looked younger, fragile. "I used to know what I was doing," he said quietly. "In the air, in combat, I was decisive." His voice thinned. "Now I second-guess everything." There it was. The doubt, not about flying, about himself. I stepped closer before I could overthink it. "You flew me across the city without blinking." That was different. "Why?" He looked at me then. "Because this time if I failed it wouldn't just be a mission. It would be him." Finn, that fear in his eyes. It wasn't weakness. It was love. And it scared him more than war ever did. Without thinking I reached for his arm. "You're not failing him," I said softly. "You're choosing him." Every day. His breathing slowed. But his walls didn't fall completely. They just cracked. And as we stood there in that dim hallway, something dangerous happened. I didn't see a hero. I didn't see a janitor. I saw a man who was trying. And I wanted to stand beside him. Not above him, beside him. That realization frightened me more than anything he'd confessed. Because wanting someone means risking something. And I've spent years avoiding risk in love. But standing that close to him, I felt it. The risk. And I didn't step back. My father found out. Of course he did. He has a way of knowing everything that threatens his version of control. He walked into my office without knocking. Silver hair. Perfect posture. Disapproval already in his eyes. "We need to talk," he said. That tone used to make me straighten up like a child. It didn't this time. "About the janitor," he continued. The word hit like an insult. "He has a name," I replied evenly. My father ignored that. "You let him fly our helicopter. You've been seen with him. Executives are talking." There it was. Image, legacy, optics. "You're risking the company for—" "What exactly?" he pressed. I felt heat rise in my chest. "He saved that contract." "That doesn't change what he is." I stood slowly. "And what is that?" "A man with baggage, a child. A past that doesn't align with this family. This family. Like love was a merger agreement. You don't get to decide who aligns with me," I said. His eyes hardened. "I built this empire. I won't watch you throw it away for a broken soldier who mops floors." Broken. That word sliced. Because I knew the truth. Liam wasn't broken. He was surviving. And maybe I was the one hiding behind titles. "He's the most disciplined man in this building," I said quietly. "Including you." The room went silent. You're emotional, my father snapped. No, I replied. For the first time, I'm honest. He leaned forward. If you continue this, distraction, don't expect my support. My heart pounded, because his support has always been my safety net, and I heard myself say something I hadn't planned. Then maybe I don't need it. The word shocked even me. He stared at me like he didn't recognize his daughter. Be careful, he warned. He left without slamming the door, but it felt like something closed anyway. When I saw Liam later that night, pushing a cleaning cart down the hallway, I felt the weight of what I'd just risked. He looked up slightly. Everything okay? He asked. The concern in his voice was quiet, real, and for a second, I wanted to tell him everything. Instead, I said, Do you ever regret walking away? He studied me. Every day, he admitted. And never. That answer stayed with me, because I realized something. Loving him wouldn't be easy. It would cost me comfort, approval, maybe even power. And for the first time in years, I was considering paying the price. The email didn't come to me. It came to him, and somehow that made it worse. SkiTech wanted a live flight, demonstration at their global summit, investors, press, cameras, the works. In exchange, a full private school scholarship for Finn. When Liam walked into my office holding his phone, I knew before he spoke. His jaw was tight, his eyes uncertain. They offered this, he said quietly, handing it to me. I read it carefully, twice. It wasn't a small invitation. It was a spotlight. And he hates spotlights. What do you want to do? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. That hesitation, it was fear, not of flying, of becoming visible again. If I say yes, he said slowly, everything changes. Yes, I replied honestly. And if I fail? There it was again, that word, fail. I leaned forward. You didn't fail in Afghanistan. You didn't fail me on that rooftop, and you're not failing your son. His expression shifted, not convinced, just listening. I walked away for a reason, he said. Because you were grieving, I answered. Not because you were incapable. Silence stretched between us, and something softer filled it. Trust. Will you be there? He asked finally. The vulnerability in that question hit me harder than any confession. Yes, I said without hesitation. Every second. His eyes held mine longer than usual. It wasn't romantic in a dramatic way. It was quiet, careful, like he was stepping onto thin ice and deciding whether I'd catch him if it cracked. Okay, he breathed. I'll do it. Relief washed through me, and fear followed right behind it, because now it wasn't just his risk, it was ours. That night I couldn't sleep, not because of the event, because I realized something I hadn't planned. I wanted him to succeed, not for SkiTech, not for publicity, but because I wanted him to see himself the way his son did. The best pilot in the world, and somewhere between business strategy and protective instinct. My feelings stopped being strategic and started becoming personal, and that scared me more than the flight ever could. The day of the demonstration felt heavier than any board meeting I'd ever led, and for once, I wasn't the one in control. The airfield south of Seattle was packed. Investors lined the viewing stands. Cameras flashed. SkiTech banners hung like trophies waiting to be claimed. I stood near the runway wearing a headset, not as CEO, as support. That shifted something to me. Liam stood beside the helicopter in a flight suit that fit him like it remembered him. Finn clutched his hand, tiny aviator sunglasses sliding down his nose. You're gonna be awesome, Dad, Finn said. Liam crouched to adjust the glasses. You think so? You're the best pilot in the world. His voice cracked just slightly, and I saw it. The fear, not of crashing, of disappointing that little boy. I stepped closer, my voice calm in his headset. Weather's clean. You've got clear airspace. He glanced at me, and for a second the noise around us faded. Don't let me overthink it, he said quietly. I won't, I answered. That moment felt intimate in a way I wasn't prepared for, like we were standing on the edge of something much bigger than a flight. The engine roared to life. The blades began to spin, and my heart matched their rhythm. He lifted off smooth, controlled, effortless, overholds, precision turns. Perfect banking angles. The crowd fell silent, not polite silence. I watched his movements through the glass cockpit. No hesitation, no doubt. Just instinct, just mastery, and somewhere between altitude adjustments and flawless landings. He remembered who he was. When the helicopter touched down, the applause erupted. Finn ran across the tarmac screaming, "That's my dad!" Liam stepped out, and this time, he smiled. Not the guarded half smile, a real one. He picked up Finn, holding him tight, and then his eyes found mine across the field. There was something there. Gratitude, relief, and something warmer, something unspoken. And for the first time since the rooftop, I didn't feel like I was losing control. I felt like I was falling into something steadier, and I wasn't sure if that terrified me or thrilled me. That night I thought the hard part was over. I was wrong. I got home late, heels in my hand, mind still replaying his smile on the runway. There was an envelope under my door. No return address. My stomach tightened. Inside was a handwritten note from my father. You were right. Any man who would risk everything for his child deserves more respect than I gave him. I'm proud of you. I read it twice. Then I cried, not because he approved, but because for the first time, I hadn't needed him to. The next morning Liam came to my office. He didn't knock. He never does anymore. That small shift made my pulse quicken. They offered me something permanent, he said. Ski-Tech wanted him as a lead consultant, full-time, public role. Public recognition. You should take it, I said immediately. He didn't smile. That's not what I'm worried about. He stepped closer to my desk. If I step back into that world, I won't be invisible anymore. His voice lowered. And you're not invisible either. I understood what he meant. Two visible people don't get quiet lives, and quiet is how he survives. You don't have to hide to be safe, I said softly. He studied me. And you don't have to be Steel all the time, he replied. That hit deeper than I expected, because he sees me, not the title, not the last name. Me, the girl who was left at the altar because power intimidated someone weaker. The woman who built walls so high no one could climb them. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. Do what, he asked. Care about someone without turning it into strategy. His lips curved slightly. Then don't strategize. That simple, that terrifying. Silence settled between us. Not awkward. Charged. I felt it then. Not gratitude. Not admiration. Something warmer. Something dangerous. I meant what I said, he added quietly. About being there. For the flight? No. His eyes held mine. For you. And suddenly the rooftop joke didn't feel cruel anymore. It felt like fate had misfired early. Because this wasn't a deal. It was a choice. And I realized I wanted to choose him. But wanting and saying are two different things, and I wasn't sure I was brave enough yet. I almost ruined it, not with a cruel joke this time, with fear. Ski-Tech's official offer went public faster than we expected. Press releases, headlines, decorated army. Pilot joins tech aviation expansion. His name everywhere, and mine attached to it. The board called an emergency meeting. They didn't question his credentials. They questioned my judgment. Personal involvement clouds leadership, one of them said. That sentence echoed longer than it should have, because once someone left me for being too much. Now they were implying I wasn't enough to separate business from feeling. When I walked out of that room, my chest was tight. Liam was waiting in the lobby with Finn. He must have seen something in my face. What happened? He asked quietly. I forced a smile. Nothing I can't handle. He didn't believe me. You don't have to protect me from board politics, he said. I stiffened. I'm not protecting you. Yes, you are. There was no accusation in his tone, just understanding, and that somehow made it worse. You think I can't stand beside you publicly? He asked gently. That's not it. Then what is it? I hesitated, because the truth felt small when spoken out loud. I've lost someone before, I admitted. The moment my title outweighed his ego. His expression softened. I'm not Derek. I know, but fear doesn't disappear just because logic says it should. He stepped closer, not touching me. Just close enough that I felt steadier. I don't want your position, he said. I don't want your name. I don't want your power. His voice lowered. I want you. Simple, direct, no strategy. And that terrified me more than any boardroom vote. Because if he ever walked away, it wouldn't be about contracts. It would be about my heart. Finn tugged at his hand. Dad, are we staying for dinner with Miss Chloe? The innocence of that question cut through everything. I looked at them. At the way Liam's hand automatically rested on his son's shoulder, at the way they felt like something solid, something real, and I realized I was the one hesitating, not him. Stay, I said finally. Liam searched my face. Are you sure? No board approval, no father's blessing, just my choice. I took a breath. Yes, but even as I said it, a part of me wondered how much more pressure our fragile beginning could survive. I decided to stop negotiating my own happiness. That was the real turning point. Not the flight, not the boardroom, not my father's apology. It was the moment I realized I was still acting like love required permission. A week later, I went to the rooftop, alone. The helicopter sat there quiet, catching the last light of sunset. That's where it began, a cruel joke, a man in a gray uniform, and a version of me that hid behind steel. I heard footsteps behind me. Thought I'd find you here? His voice, steady, warm. I turned. He wasn't in a janitor's uniform. He wasn't in a flight suit, just jeans, a simple jacket, hands slightly nervous in his pockets. That vulnerability undid me more than medals ever could. "I've been thinking," he said. "That's dangerous," I teased softly. He smiled. "I don't want to disappear anymore." The wind lifted a strand of my hair. "Good," I whispered. He stepped closer, not rushed, measured. "I used to fly for my country," he said quietly. "Then I flew for survival. Then I flew for my son." His eyes met mine. "I want to fly for something else now." My heart pounded. "For what?" I asked. "For us." There it was. No grand speech, no dramatic music, just truth. "You once said you'd marry me if I flew the helicopter," he reminded me. Heat rose to my cheeks. I was awful that day. "You were desperate," he corrected gently. Silence settled between us, not heavy, expectant. "So," he continued, voice steady but softer than I'd ever heard it. "If I asked you now, without pressure, without deals, without contracts," he took a small step closer, "would you choose me? Not marry me, choose me." That word mattered more, because choosing means staying. I looked at him, at the man who walked away from glory for his son, the man who stood beside me without trying to compete, the man who made me feel less alone without trying to control me. "I don't want a merger," I said softly. He waited. "I want a partner." His jaw tightened just slightly. "Then say it." The wind carried my answer. "Yes." His breath left him in a quiet laugh of relief. He didn't drop to one knee. He didn't need to. He pulled me into him instead, strong, certain, not controlling, and as the sun disappeared behind the Seattle skyline, I realized something. Love wasn't the risk. Avoiding it was, and this time, I wasn't stepping back.